Welcome to the program. I'm Okpeyemi Owoseni. We start off with business news. The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, has allayed fears of the possible introduction of new taxes to the proposed tax reform laws. Adedeji, who made this known when he appeared before the Senate Committee on Finance, assured Nigerians that the tax reforms would not entail the introduction of new taxes or increase of already existing ones. At the interactive session aimed at briefing the committee on the plans of the FIRS in implementing tax reforms, Adedeji noted that the reforms essentially seeks to increase the simplicity, efficiency of tax administration and obliterate the multiplicity of taxes without the intention of merging any agency
or introduce any taxes, if anything, because when we talk about harmonization, it actually reduced the number of taxes that will be paid, reduced the compliance cost by businesses, and also increased the simplicity and efficiency of tax administration in Nigeria. So the intention of Mr. President is to harmonize all the tax laws that we have and rates that we have, so that at the end of the day, Nigeria will be more competitive, and then we will reduce the burden of tax, whether on the citizen or on the corporation.
With this, I believe that Nigeria is now getting it right in the area of taxation, and I believe that when we strengthen it, we'll be able to make more revenue, and in return, we'll be able to have more developments, especially in our infrastructure, which we are in deficit at this moment. I must also commend FIRS. First, when the chairman was given the chance to speak, he said they were able to meet up the target we have given. As a committee, when we set a target, it's not just enough. If you are going to add, do more, we expect, don't just stop at the target we give you. We expect that you exceed the target we have given to you.
The Nigerian telecom sector has seen an improvement in foreign direct investment in 2024 as they attracted a total of $204 million in the first 6 months of the year. According to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, the sector has more than doubled the $134.75 capital importation recorded in the full year 2023 with the 6-month record of 2024. This is coming after years of consistent decline in investment, even with a gap in infrastructure gap requiring billions of investment to bridge. The NBS data showed that the sector attracted a $101.5 million capital inflow in the first quarter of this year, marking a significant 769% increase when compared with the $22.05 million received in the first quarter of 2023. We'll go on a short break now and be back with more stories in the corporate world. Welcome back. Now, customers of Guaranty Trust Bank have continued to complain about their inability to access banking services due to ongoing downtime, despite the bank's claim of completing the transaction to a new core banking application system. For days, customers of the bank have been unable to use its digital platforms following the movement to the new banking system. Now, just as individual customers complain about the persisting inability to transact, corporate customers have also been impacted, with some of them urging their clients to use other banks to transact on their platforms. On October 16th, digital platform Invest urged its customers to use other banks not experiencing downtimes. Bank customers in Nigeria have been experiencing disruptions, with more expected in the coming weeks as several financial institutions upgrade their core banking systems. MTN Nigeria and other multinational business owners have appealed to the Nigerian government to create a level playing field to enable businesses sustain their investments in the country. The appeal was made as the Chief Financial Officer of MTN, Modupe Kadri, stated that the high inflation rate and foreign exchange fluctuations has made it difficult for the telecommunications industry to operate effectively. They made the appeal during a panel session at the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja, titled Navigating Business Growth in a Volatile Environment. Speaking in his address, the CFO noted that the current situation has caused tariff increases in the petroleum and electricity industry and wondered why the same increases would not be permitted in the telecommunications industry. He stated that for the government to encourage the survival of businesses, there must be a level playing ground. We'll go on a break now, but when Money Matter returns, we'll be discussing Nigeria's headline inflation rate in September 2024, increasing to 32.70% from 32.15% in August 2024. I'll bring you more details after this break. Welcome back. Nigeria's inflation rates rose in September 2024 to 32.70%, up from 32.15% in August 2024, marking a 0.55% increase month on month. Now, this is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The Consumer Price Index report stated that inflation during the month was propelled by increases in transportation costs and food prices. The new increase, the first in 3 months, comes on the heels of the increases in petrol price by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited since early September. The food inflation rate in September 2024 was 37.77% year-on-year, marking an increase of 7.13 percentage points from the 30.64% recorded in September 2023. While core inflation, which excludes volatile agricultural products and energy prices, stood at 27.43% year-on-year in September 2024, an increase of 5.59 percentage points when compared to the 21.84% in September 2023. Now, let's discuss the new increase in Nigeria's inflation rate with financial expert Olusesan. Thank you for joining me on the program, Mr. Okwande. Now, this new increase in inflation rate, the first in 3 months, it has been attributed to the rise in petrol prices. Now, do you think some measures, if implemented, could have prevented this increase?
Yeah, thank you very much. As we all know, energy costs on its own has a great impact in the livelihood of everyone. Be it in terms of power or in terms of the petroleum products that is also being used to generate power. And the continuous increase in the price of those commodities, both to the distribution company and for the product that is used in generated it, is impacting greatly on the inflation rates. And that's why a lot of us have actually raised an eyebrow that every of the efforts by the monetary anglers, which is CBN, seems to be fruitless. And the major area of concentrating in domesticating some of the things that we have is really not working. In the sense that we expect that with every revenue that have actually been generated, we will divert some in actually looking for how we can resuscitate our refinery and see how we can have more supply of this particular product domestically in collaboration with what Dangote is doing so that we can reduce the price. You and I understand the fact that they made us understand that deregulating that sector will make it fall in the hands of demand and supply. So when you have more supply produced locally outweighing the demand, it will force the price of that product down as against leaving it in the hands of a single person. So in conclusion, I can always tell you that the increase in the price is one of the focal area that is actually increasing our inflation. And I think it's something that government need to look internally. We can't go the route of diverting some of those revenue being generated into personnel cost of taking care of the minimum wage. A lot of us have said it that rather than increasing it, put up infrastructure and enabling environment for businesses to grow, and we can have a minimum living standard as against increasing minimum wage that cannot even cater for the low income and not to talk of the elites.
Now, as it stands, analysts believe the renewed rise in inflation raises the prospect that the central bank would continue with its rate hiking cycle after 5 hikes so far this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my thought on this is that it is not only the function of the central bank. They will continue to increase if the basic things that are supposed to be addressed are not addressed. And what are the major areas that we are speaking to? Can we start looking for way to empower the industries that we have within and start seeing how we can be more productive in every facet that we talked about? We can't continue to be import dependent and expect things to change from wherever it is currently. All we'll just be doing is to put in so much pressure on foreign exchange being managed by the CBN and continuously, month in, month out, with the pressure that we are putting on it, speak from the education sector, agricultural sector, production sector, name it, will continue to allow the increase in that particular thing. And as you are bringing them in, you reduce the purchasing power of an average citizen because whatever they are earning cannot accommodate what they will be buying at that point in time. So I feel it's an holistic thing that is expected of the government in seeing how we can go into the area of agriculture, see how we can improve in the area of production. And when you look at that, I'll keep telling every individual that care to listen, if you don't take care of the energy cost, which plays more than 50 to 60% of what you carry out, then you go nowhere. A lot of people have actually been migrated to Band A, but you ask yourself the affordability. A lot of these things that are actually being given to some of these people are also transferred to the consumer at the tail end of whatever they are doing. And that is why we keep seeing inflation going up and down, going up, systematically every month, because we are not addressing the fundamental root of domesticating some of the herb and see how we can locally be processing some of the natural resources that we have as against exporting them for revenue generation and going ahead to buy the finished product.
Now, with food inflation reaching 37.77%, what structural changes do you think are necessary to stabilize food prices in Nigeria? And then how can the government address the supply chain issues affecting food distribution in the country?
Yeah, thank you very much. What we can do to address food inflation is how to go back to agricultural, how to see how we can have more of agricultural produce as against the current importation that we are doing practically on all the foods that we have. And to address this issue, we'll not be speaking far from saying how we can secure the environment. You and I understand what we are faced with as a nation in terms of insecurity that has actually denied our farmers to actually go to farm as at when due. When they are supposed to plant, they are scared. And aside that, investment in mechanized farming. You see, I traveled not too long, like 2-3 weeks ago, to some part of the Southwest, and I looked at the vast land that we have. And it saddened my heart that we look at majority of those areas being developed for residential purpose, where we can actually, grow crops. The lands are fertile. It's not that we are actually planting irrigation. We have good weather to support it. So these are areas I have expected the federal government to see how to, talk to the state government to invest more in agricultural produce. Gone are those days when in this part of the world, we grow most of the thing. Where is cocoa? Those days you see that farmers, they will tell you that farmers are the rich people. When they make cocoa, they make some other grains that we have locally, and we even export some of those things. But the insecurity has posed a threat to some of these things being achieved, and that's why we feel that government need to address that, and our farmers being able to go back to the farm, plant as at when the harvest. Most of the things that we consume are seasonal. If you consider security at this point in time, and in the next 6 months when they are supposed to plant other crops that is expected to grow at a particular time, and the insecurity is not allowing them, then it will pose stress. We must go back, and government must support mechanized farming. But you see, a challenge I see to some of these things. Remember the last administration plan on some of these things, Anchor Borrower Scheme and the likes. But you discover that do we have the database of the right set of people who are actually empowered to carry this thing out being done? A lot of people look at shortcut. People who manages some of these things look at their own that can benefit, from this, and not the real set of people that require this. So we must look for way to see how we are transparent in some of the things we are doing, most especially launching back into our agricultural produce. We are blessed with vast land, good and quality fertile land. All we need is the machinery, to work, not the traditional way of farming, mechanized, where we have vast land that you can produce a lot of things, and those things are actually protected and secured against other people like the herdsmen who goes and their farm, their animal, consume some of the farm produce. These are areas I feel we need to address, because bulk of the foods that we are actually consuming are majorly imported, and that on its own, with the current foreign exchange, even if those that are selling it to you still sell at the same price, your foreign exchange will not make it go cheaper. So we must look at way to see what we can do domestically, locally, for us to actually enjoy the God-given, vast land, fertile land, to grow this economy of ours.
Well, according to the NBS report, inflation is more pronounced in urban areas when compared to rural areas. What policies do you think would help balance this disparity?
Yeah, well, to my own opinion, the reason for that is not far-fetched. Everybody is looking for white-collar jobs, so you put so much pressure coming out here, while you discover that the basic needs of somebody in the rural area is to possibly he grow some of the things he consumes. That on its own, it's really not putting pressure on him on what to consume. Maybe behind his house or the next 2 plots of land by his side are some of the produce that he can consume for himself and his family. But in the urban area, it's more of a holistic life where the elites rely solely on some of the things that they have to. So there is no how things will not be actually, going higher and higher. So mine is that government needs to look for a way to balance it. It's not a crime if you consider that things are not working the way it should be. Use your expertise and your knowledge. You go back to farming or go and develop some you see areas where you feel that those things are not promotional. You can go ahead and invest in industries of producing. So you empower people there and move those things to the urban area. So by that, we believe in. I have said it that even in urban area like Lagos, yeah, I'm sure you are aware that some areas are congested more than the other. Not because it's residential, but people just feel because of class, because of ego to stay in those areas, even when they cannot afford it. Same is obtainable even with this urban and rural settlement. A lot of people come to the urban not because they want to, but they want to come out for a white collar job. But people in the rural area consider themselves, with the level at which they are, make provision of all the necessary things that they needed without even having any imported one that they have to consume. The food they have to eat is local, they produce it, and that on its own give them good saving. So government must look at ways at which we need to balance this urban-rural migration and take off this ideology that it's only those with white-collar jobs that are more superior. While we are growing, they make us know that farmers are king. Because if you don't have food to eat, how will you survive and sustain yourself? So we must go back to that tradition at which we empower people, that we encourage a lot of youth to go into the rural area, go into mechanized farming if they have the support of the government against insecurity. And with that, we can balance that and reduce the pressure that we are faced with in the urban setting.
Let's talk about the broader global economic factors such as oil prices and exchange rate, as well as how well do you think they can influence Nigeria's inflation? Do you think there are global trends that might affect future inflation rates?
Yeah, you remember when we had the problem of the Russia and Ukraine, it impacted a lot on several nations, not only Nigeria, because the contribution of those two countries to the global economy was quite massive. But a lot of people look internally to what they can make of themselves rather than depending on the two nations that we are talking about. So, and that's what I feel that a country like Nigeria needs to look into. We have the human capital, we have the material that I can call land and the natural resources. We just need to be intentional on seeing how we can make use of those things that we have to our satisfaction and possibly look for a way to export it for us to gain a lot of things. You see, when we rely solely on this developed world, on some of the things that they are actually producing, it puts so much pressure on our foreign exchange, and the volatility of that exchange will continue to create a lot of problem for us domestically. And that's why everybody seems to be looking internally, so that if at all you need any reliance on them, it will be minimal and they look up to you. You and I can understand the issue that we have surrounding Dangote refinery with the developed world, with the advent of that refinery. If we support our own, we can definitely get value and earn more foreign exchange that will reduce the pressure that we have. You see, until when we start believing in ourselves, start consuming, you never see an Asia person relying well on foreign things that they have to do. Not too long did we hear about the sanction that the Western world, offered to Asia. And what did they do? They went back to the drawing board, reconfigure things that they want for themselves. And they no longer plug into some of those. Now, before you see it, they will take over the space and it will become a competition between them and the developer. That's what I feel we need to start doing in Africa, specifically Nigeria, the giant of the world, to make sure that a lot of the things that we do, we are more self-reliant than depending on the developed world, who volatility of the foreign exchange will continue to compound that problem with.
Now, we've seen inflation decline for 2 months before increasing in September. Now, based on this trend, what are your projections for Nigeria's inflation in the next 6 months to 1 year? That's like in 2025. And what indicators should we be monitoring closely?
Yeah, well, by projection, I don't want to sound sarcastic because the handlers of the economy are working tirelessly to see how they revamp the economy and bring things back to normal. But if you ask me, because those policies that we are trying to introduce seems not to, is a new thing, and supporting the areas of concentration, I'm not seeing that thing. Maybe the next 3 months, we might still have an increase in our inflation, and maybe towards the beginning of next quarter. Don't forget, we are moving towards the end of the year where there will be so much pressure on things that one needs to do. A lot of imported product we have to fly in, because people want to celebrate the Yuletide, even when the Yuletide, even when there is no money. So that on its own will put so much pressure. We expected that a lot of people might want to travel in, which can give a little inflow in our foreign exchange, but cannot be compared with some of the things. Well, practically everything that we are doing as we speak are being imported into the country. And you ask yourself, we can't continue in that in that manner and expect growth for our nation. So maybe till the end of this year, we might still have an upward trend of inflation, knowing fully well the season that we're entering into. And as we look into the next quarter, which is the first quarter of 2025, things might start taking the proper shape of having a decline in the inflation rate.
The government has been introducing several measures, even the Apex Bank, to help tackle this inflation. But then, what particular measures do you think the Nigerian government can take to mitigate the impact of the rising inflation on households and businesses? Because trust me, people are really complaining.
Yeah, some of the things we feel they need to do is this issue of so-called palliative that we are sharing, cash transfer and the likes. Because some of us still have issue with the database being used, we question it a lot. I feel we should invest more on infrastructure that can impact. Can we have within the next 6 to 9 months resuscitation of 2 of our refinery to see how we can bring down, to now collaborating with what Dangote will be giving us as a nation. Now look at how we can start producing that and reduce the cost of petroleum products drastically. That on its own will definitely impact. And don't forget, when you produce locally or you refine locally, part of the things you're doing is that you have gas, which we are currently ferrying, which you can pump into the power sector for you to grow that particular thing, where the private individuals can come in and invest in it and see how they can tap into the gas thermal station for them to build for power. And the other byproducts can also be considered as input into other areas. Imagine when we process crude oil, I'm sure you know fertilizer is part of the things that we have. So if you send those crude oil out, they don't send fertilizer back to you for free. You have to buy. And that on its own is part of the things that is actually putting pressure on our foreign exchange. So I feel that government needs to look at area of where we can either resuscitate a refinery or complete, building of a refinery. It might take a little time, but when we have the idea that is the area where we want to focus. Dangote was intentional about it, and we all know where it is today. We can provide support for him while we look at other areas of developing what the government can call their own or encourage businesses. The frustration Dangote got, while trying to set up that is not an encouraging thing for other people to venture into that business. Government must look for a way to make those business environment, attractive for people. And when we start doing our things locally, we can start getting value for some of the things, and it can improve a lot as citizens of the country.
Mr. Olusesan, now inflation has risen in September, we all know that. But then if inflation continues to rise, what long-term implications might this have for Nigeria's economy and investment climate generally?
Yeah, the impact of this on our economy, if it continue to persist, is that you live the life of so many of the citizens more worse than where you met it. You and I understand that 100,000 of last month, it's not the same with this month. I'm sure you know what we bought for last month, what we are buying it. And that on its own is contributing to the bottom line. Day by day, the purchasing power of an average citizen keep declining. So government need to be intentional to see how we can even mitigate that rather than increasing. Can we even have a steady inflation that people can plan towards and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like. Those are the things that actually attract foreign investors into the country. The stability of your economy currently is very volatile because you can't even predict what will happen tomorrow. Today, you're talking about grid collapse. Tomorrow, you're talking about increase in the fuel price. So when you have your work plan, gone are those years where you can project and have a business plan of what it will look like in the next 3-5 years. But it's not achievable because what you planned last month with the current increase that we are envisaging, and people are still saying that there is most likely there will be an increase in that. You discover that will create a lot of problems. These are areas I feel that government need to look into, and with that, we can start attracting foreign direct investment in the magnitude that is expected of it.
Well, financial expert Olusesan Okunade, many thanks for lending your thoughts on the program. Well, that's it on this episode of the program. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Okpeyemi Owosheni. See you next time.